Hi, and thank you all for joining us today. We are broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 on the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. As you just heard, we are airing live on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, which is 105.3 on the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. Please be sure to join us in one of our various chat rooms so that you can connect with our host today. And with that, we're very excited to be able to speak with Michael Horn again. We've had him as a guest at least 3 times in the past. So be sure to head on over to my YouTube channel, which is Ethereal Encounters Unveiled, and you'll be able to watch them all there. And today we're going to be talking about Billy Meier's 2025 predictions that are unfolding before our eyes. And he is the master of predictions. And of course, I'm going to have Michael give you some of his background and explain who he is. And for those of you that aren't familiar with Billy Meier, I'll have him give a quick summary on who he is as well. You'll be fascinated to discover his life story and his encounters with alien beings from other galaxies. So with that said, I am going to introduce Michael. Michael, hi.
Carol Ann, how are you?
I am well. Thank you so much. Just getting over a cold, so excuse me if I have to cough. I'll mute myself. But like everyone I know is struggling with this dumb thing. But thank you again for being with us. And I'm going to step off stage for a minute or two and allow you to tell our guests that aren't familiar with who you are and who Billy is, and just give us a quick summary of both. And I'm also going to run the ticker. There we go. So Michael, please tell folks who you are, your background a little bit, and also tell us about Billy. If you could give us a quick summary, that would be great.
Oh boy. Okay. Pardon me. I am, it's funny when you try to introduce yourself, where do you start? And what do you tell people? Well, in terms of this material, I began investigating what is called the Billy Meier UFO case, or the Billy Meier UFO contacts, back in 1979. Now, long before that, I was fascinated as a young boy by the idea of so-called flying saucers back in the day. That's what they were called. I used to listen to very primitive, space-oriented radio shows, and then subsequently following early developments of TV shows that were space hero-oriented, and I'd be, glued to the screen. And I would have dreams as young as 10 years of age, not of these little funny rocket ships that were being featured in the early 1950s, if you will, but of discs flying in the sky and in formations in the night sky, discs. So I kind of always had that interest, but it wasn't until 1979 when I walked in a bookstore in Los Angeles, California, and was confronted by this photo book staring at me from across the aisle. I walk in, there it is, and it's the most crystal clear photographs of, well, they were still sometimes called flying saucers, but we'd moved into the UFO period at about that point. And for the people who are watching this encounter, this ethereal encounter, this conversation, behind me I have put up some of the photos that this man Billy Meier has taken pre-digital era. We can get into that stuff as to how they've been analyzed and authenticated. But it launched me into a study that now I'm in the 46th year of. And what I discovered over that time, there were just many different things. This was the time when the beginning of the so-called New Age information. And I'd been a songwriter already for many years. And then I was writing New Age comedy songs about all these things, UFOs, health foods, channeling, crystals, you name it. But I sort of starting to move away from a full-time involvement, such an involvement with music, so that I could spend more time studying and researching the Billy Meier case. So, it goes on from there. But Billy Meier, now there's the center of the story, this man. Billy Meier claims that when he was a 5-year-old boy back in 1942, that he had his first telepathic contact, his first visual sighting of a large craft, a silver craft, with his father outside one day, and that he began to have face-to-face voluntary meetings and conversations and travels with these people that we now call the Plejaren extraterrestrials. Interestingly enough, Billy Meier is the author of the term Pleiadians. That was a screen name that he was asked by these alleged extraterrestrials to use starting in 1975, when he would transcribe his conversations and when he would publish some of the hundreds and hundreds of UFO photos, the films, the videos, and stuff. Now, he knew at that time, and he even asked this woman, her name was Semyaze, why he should use such a term as Pleiadian, since there is no life whatsoever in the Pleiades. And she said to him, well, you're about to cause quite a stir, quite a controversy on Earth. People are going to find your material, your photographs, your films, your conversations with us that you will be publishing. So if we use that term, you're going to find that in the ensuing years and for a long time, people are going to come forward claiming that they are meeting with, channeling, having children with so-called Pleiadians. You will not have to bother to ask us anything about these people, because since there is no life in the Pleiades, and since we are providing you with this screen name, you will know that each of these people, to a person that uses that term, will be lying either deliberately or unknowingly, and you won't have to keep coming and saying, well, so-and-so in this country claims this and that. And it's a funny thing, because it really did evolve that way. Many people that are listening or watching this show probably have heard the term Pleiadians and have, had people that they know about that have said, well, I am channeling the Pleiadians and meeting with them. There are no such beings. Now, that is a controversial thing in its own right, but what's really, let's say, the most compelling thing here is, and I'll try and summarize this in a way and we'll elaborate on it. This man, who's now 88 years of age, he's a man who only has one arm. He lost most of his left arm in a very brutal traffic accident years ago, 1963. He has been provided the opportunity. He knows when and where to go to shoot entire reels and let's say entire rolls of film and reels of video and all that stuff, and to capture the world's attention with it. That's only the beginning. That's the entree. That's the entry point for this. And without spoiling anything, I will tell you this, and you'll see if we elaborate on it in this conversation, or if you visit my blog and you start searching around, you will see that what he has published for all these years, especially in terms of the information, over 45,000 pages, contains specific information and evidence that could only have been obtained through space and or time travel to a legal and scientific standard. Now, this isn't the thing where people come forward and they say, so-and-so's a time traveler and he's been living on Mars. None of this stuff that has no evidence. This is the most evidence-rich case you will ever find, and the most amazing, unassuming, modest human being who has had his life attacked 25 times, 25 assassination attempts for his trouble. And his trouble doesn't include running around the world trying to convince people of this. He takes the photos, he's published them, the films, the information, and he says, well, it's up to people to, if they're interested, they can look into this. Time and space travel takes about 15 minutes. If we were to do this in a court of law, we would present sufficient evidence right then and there. It would be a slam dunk. The rest of the time would simply be elaborating on the voluminous amount of evidence for that. So I might have gone a little afield for you here, but this is something quite different. And I have referred to it since 2004 as the key to our future survival.
That was a great summary. And in addition, and I think this is an important note, in addition to being the only scientifically proven UFO contactee, Billy Meier is the source of the most abundant, specific, prophetic, accurate, and scientific data that's world event related information. And
Yes.
that now there are over 200 prophecies and predictions from Myers that have been corroborated. And
Yes.
that speaks volumes in and of itself. Now we've talked about Billy's predictions in the past, you and I, and some of them, all of them really, were mind-blowing. And most recently, the one that kind of blew my mind was the predictions about what's happening in Italy. And you and I had a conversation about that as well. Found that fascinating. So, like I said in the past videos that we had, we talked about some of these more well-known predictions. Could you just highlight a few of them for folks? You don't have to go into great depth, but just give us a quick overview of what some of them were.
Well, sure. I'll start with the Italian volcanoes because you mentioned it. This is dating back to 1948. And what's amazing here is that there is information that young Billy Meier began to write and to have help with disseminating. He had teachers. There were people who were very cruel to him in his childhood, but there were those who helped him. There's a world famous psychiatrist, I believe he was called, or psychologist, Jung, Carl Jung, who was one of the people who actually helped Meier and a parish priest and a teacher who were helping Meier to disseminate information. When you actually read, and we have these online, the writing of a 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old boy, it's staggering. It is simply, it was said that by the time he was about 10, he had the thinking capacity of a well-educated 35-year-old man, and it's no joke. So going back to 1948, in that material, among many things, his first alleged, for those who want to take this slowly, extraterrestrial teacher was an elderly-looking man, was an old man indeed, named Svath, S-F-A-T-H. And Svath, in this lengthy document, explains that in the coming time, 5 major volcanoes in Italy will start to become quite active, and then ultimately massive eruptions, very devastating eruptions, will take place in Italy. Now, he says, before this time, now this is published in 1948, before these volcanoes start to get more and more active, because every now and then, volcanoes become active and then they go dormant. He said there will be very strong earthquakes in central Italy in 2016. Here's a man, 1948, gives the year 2016, the location central Italy. So I thought, well, I have to look this up because you don't just take the word for it when somebody has published something that specific. I looked up and I put this in articles that are freely available on the blog. The strongest earthquakes on record in central Italy, 2016.
Mm.
Subsequent to that, within a couple of years, the now much more frequent activity. Let's see if I remember them. Mount Etna, Vesuvius, Stromboli. Mount Marsili hasn't yet become as active. And then there's Campi Flegrei, this big caldera, which has become very active. I have sent information to scientists and government people in Italy going back months and months and even earlier, especially about Campi Flegrei, even though it may or may not be the first one that really blows. When it does, it's going to take parts of Italy into the sea.
Jeez.
Okay, so we're on record for a long time with warning here, and of course it's just ignored for the most part. Volcanoes that will become active again with devastating results. Santorini, well, it started to become active. That one, when it blows, will also be pretty devastating. There is what is it called? The Cascadia subduction zone in North America, up in the vicinity, up there off the coast of Oregon and Washington and all. In 2005, Meier publishes information, listen to this, predicting there will be a 9.0 seaquake that will run for 5 straight minutes. 9.0. Anybody here who's ever been in an earthquake, I lived in California for a long time. It was like a 7 point something. It went on for 30 seconds,
Yeah.
5 minutes. So when that does that, there's going to be a tsunami, big tsunami, and then another seaquake and another tsunami. Now, 3 years later, 2008, there's a new prediction, or whatever you'd call it, from Oregon State University. They literally say, based on their scientific studies, they are now foreseeing a 9.0 seaquake and tsunami that'll follow. See, here's the thing. Billy Meier never publishes a theory. That was a theoretical thing from Oregon State University, but it just so happens to corroborate this potential. Now, neither gave the date for it, but it's a coming. And there is activity that is occurring every now and then. Something shifts up there, right? So, how do we know? People could say, well, how do we really know that Billy's published this? Well, I'll say two things. One, some of the things going back to the 40s have only in the past 10 years or whatever been released, because the originals have long been, destroyed, but the copies remained, and they publish it. And the beauty of it is, just like with the 1987 prophecies, the Henoch prophecies, where Meier foretells the destruction of the WTC, i.e., the World Trade Center, by terrorists. And he also, in the same document, foretells that Russia will move troops up to a place called Arkhangelsk in Siberia, and that Russia will eventually be attacking Scandinavia, meaning Sweden, Norway, and Finland, which in 1987 were neutral. They had decent relationships with Russia. Things that at the time of original publication in German in 1987, and even when this was translated into English in 2002, none of these things had occurred. So yes, one thing had occurred for those that are sharp, the WTC. So interestingly enough, what happens is skeptics say, well, Billy Meier is just backdating things. He's just seeing something happen and he publishes it. Except that the Russian troop movement, specifically as foretold, didn't occur till 2011. Hostilities with the three otherwise neutral countries didn't begin to occur except within, let's say, the past 2 years. Let's just spread it out. Why? Because they joined NATO. And in this same document. And by the way, this document is also published in a book in 2002. We'll get to the importance of this. In that same document, in that book or online, one of the last things in there, it's not altogether, but one of the last things is that Switzerland, the country of peace and neutrality, is going to make a big mistake, get involved with NATO and the EU, give up its neutrality, which will open the door in the future time to being attacked by Russia and possibly China. This neutrality surrender is already, parts of it have happened only in the past year.
Yeah.
So if I may, before giving you any more information if you want, I mean, there's so much, folks, and it's freely available. How do we know that Billy's published this when it's said? With the exception of the World Trade Center, of course, all these things are in documents, are in books, are online. You can find them in the Wayback Machine. These are copyrights and copyrighted material. Copyright is an internationally recognized, most of the time, legal standard of proof of prior publication. Copyright does not mean that what's copyrighted, published, is true. It means that you want to find the first of something on record. It's here, and now you can determine whether it was true or not. Billy's information, copyright show, not only accurate, but error-free all the time. This leads us to why I made that statement about proving to a scientific and legal standard 15 minutes. This is a time travel. However, whether it's Meier himself, which I think is easy enough to prove, or whoever it is that's giving him astronomical, geopolitical, environmental, medical, and economic information, who and however he's getting it, these beings, people, have to have access to time travel, past and present. Why past? Because some things we only find out certain historical things or discoveries that are made about things that we either had wrong information or no information about. And suddenly Billy Meier has published it 10, 20, 30, 50 years ago, and now it's discovered. What about those things that he's published that, well, that's never come true, say some people. There's one skeptic says, well, he never predicted the earthquake in Turkey some years ago. Turns out he did. Copyright proof. So we start to look at, okay, there's tons of stuff. Now, are we just going to be titillated by this and say, oh, wow, that's really interesting, next? I suggest not, right. Because as we will get to it too, there's an underlying reason here. And just to mention it, in all of ufology, in the world of ufology, paranormal, whatever, nobody ever is known to ask the following question. If these contacts are true, what's the reason for them? It's not so that I can, have a career, among other things, to be a UFO expert, whatever that really means to people, or that we should run out and chase lights in the sky. And of course, this topic has been regarded basically as a tabloid topic for decades, except suddenly within the last few years, the government admits that they've known for 70 years. Then the airwaves are, let's just say, filled in with people claiming evil alien threat. We need more weapons. We need more this, and all sorts of things with zero evidence for an evil alien threat. Logic tells us that if people who, let's say people come in craft like in the images behind me, or whatever might be seen, and they've been doing it for 70 years, these purported evil aliens, these aren't them, but here's some UFOs. Can we ever imagine that a hostile group with evil intentions, with technology and weaponry far, far in advance of the potential victims, have ever sat back for 70 years to see if the people that they're supposedly going to threaten and attack could get their act together and come up with weaponry to give them a run for their money? No, it's absolute nonsense. It's absolute more of the government disinformation, which is all you will get, we will get, whether it's Donald Trump or Stephen Greer or anybody else carrying water for the disinformation government, secret military. That is what we're going to get. It doesn't mean that people can't say, oh, there was this event here, Roswell was real, blah, blah. But it's all the superficial stuff focusing only on technology that none of us can do anything with. You can have I mean, look, many people now have seen craft. I've been within 20 feet of craft from Billy's thing. You can have a UFO can hover outside your kitchen, and you can sit there and eat lunch and drink coffee, whatever you want, and it's there and it's hovering and the lights are like, what do you do with it? It's interesting. But when you come down to it, in itself, in and of itself, it's not the important thing. There's something else here that really is important to the people of Earth, certainly to the people of America. Oh my goodness. And that as we look at and address any and all the evidence you want, we're going to move more and more towards that, so people will be able to get an idea of why for 83 years, one man, one individual whose life has been made hell, and on the other hand has had experiences no other living or long dead human being has ever had, is doing this thing to try to bring this to the sleepy human beings of planet Earth.
But Michael, all the other folks that have made contact with ETs, these biologics, whatever you want to call them, I can't believe for a moment that they're all fabricating stories. Like, I know a few contactees that have been, they don't like to use the word abducted, but taken, let's say, and I believe them. So are the Polarans just one life form that's out there in terms of extraterrestrial beings? How does that work?
Well, I can answer that part easily. Yes, they are one life form, but we're not exactly swimming in extraterrestrials. So let's back up to what you just said. There are a lot of people that come forward, and let's just say they believe what they're saying, and I'm not calling them liars, saying they're congruent, like they really believe, and they tell a story. Well, that's fine. As someone who has learned a bit about investigating, I would have to say, well, that's fine. Where's your evidence? What is it that you're really saying? Let's just say, let's try to imagine this or build on it, and you'll be able to throw in parts that maybe I missed. They say at first, I've seen these craft, they follow me, whatever. Okay, nowadays, after all the stuff that has been seen in New Jersey and other places, by the way, there's an interesting connection to the Pleiaren not being involved with that, which they warned in advance they wouldn't be. They literally said, we're not craft that you're going to see in the sky, nothing to do. But let's go to this. So we've got people saying, we've seen these craft. Okay, now more and more people worldwide have seen them. As I said, what do you do with it? Nothing. But then the people say, I'm a contactee. I'm an experiencer. Well, what do you mean you're an experiencer or a contactee? Well, I've been taken aboard these craft, and I've been told things by these beings or people, right? Would that not qualify for what we hear from people? Fair enough. I'd say, okay, fine. Do you have any evidence for this happening to you? Because people knowingly and often very unknowingly, because of the saturation in our world now with UFOs and aliens and Pleiadians and Pleiadians and Andromedans and we're bombarded with this narrative. We go to sleep at night. We dream about things. We pick up subconsciously or offhandedly. There's something playing here. There's a movie there, a television. We, as complex human beings, absorb information. That's a possibility. But let's just say somebody says, no, I was taken aboard a craft. So say, well, do you have any evidence? the answer is going to be, and I'm not saying I welcome, I would like somebody to say, well, here's the evidence. I'd say, good, well, let's look at it. But the answer is going to be, no, I don't, but it happened, and I told people about it. I'm going to say, okay, what's the significance of it? What was it about that thing that you're claiming was important? You can't prove it, but what is, well, they told me that our world is blah, 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 blah. Well, listen, we've had that for decades and decades.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. I get that probably a large percentage are that indeed. But what about somebody like Francis brought up a good point, Chris Bledsoe? Now, we just had a ufologist on, and we had 2 or 3 conversations about. Are you familiar with Chris Bledsoe?
A little bit.
Well, he has, I would say, validated proof. He takes video of orbs and he calls them angelic beings. And he's been interviewed and asked by NASA to prove, to show these orbs to them. I mean, it's very in depth what's happening with Chris Bledsoe, and I completely believe him. I mean, you could see his videos. There's hundreds of them.
Okay, so let's just take it a step at a time. The idea of people seeing or even having, floating around orbs even in their homes. This is not, let's say, unheard of. We'd have to say it's uncommon because the mass of the world, but this has gone on for a while. There have been explanations as to what orbs are, but the orbs are not picking people up. These are more etheric, if you will, objects. We'll just use the term, we can't say from any material that I've seen exactly what they are. Now, Meier has written about that there's certain natural phenomena connected to orbs. There's sometimes certain intelligence connected with the phenomenon, but they're not beings that are picking up anybody or taking anybody anywhere. How could they be? These things are kind of ethereal, whatever you want to call it. Now, people have said for a long time various things about, I can call in UFOs, I can call in orbs or whatever.
Yeah.
There's, for instance, there's a guy up in Washington State. His name is Gilliland. I forget his first name for whatever reason. But in 2004, in May of 2004, I was in San Francisco. James Gilliland, I remember his name, at an expo there. I had just come out with one of my first DVD on the Meier case, full of tons of information, some of which the prophecies have happened since the DVD was released. Anyhow, Gilliland claims that, and people flock to this area because these lights appear in the sky seemingly on command. And he says, I'm being contacted by these beings. And then so I happened to be up there and he knew I was. I'd like you to show Billy Meier my videos and tell me what he says. I said, okay, I'll get in touch with you. I bring him, and it was very interesting. I was in Switzerland, I arrived there, and I had, Gilliland's disc. I promised him, I said, Billy, this is from a man in Washington. Say blah, blah, James Gilliland, when you have time. Now, when you have time with Billy is super busy human being. I figured maybe 2 to 4 weeks. It was about 3 days later, I think it was a Friday, because I'd come in maybe on a Monday or Tuesday and given this to him. Thursday night, which is a night for some reason that he often has these face-to-face contacts, he said, well, so-and-so was here, and we watched this video. And he said, I'm going to tell you what Ptah, this alleged extraterrestrial man, said. He said, these are not extraterrestrials visiting this man. What he sees here are secret military craft from Area 51. And he went on to describe a few things. Well, when I got to the U.S. back home and explained, and it's, by the way, it's in print. They published the information from that meeting with Billy. He wasn't happy to hear that. And he claims, well, they're contacting me. I said, well, why don't you do this, James? I don't think you've ever done this. Why don't you give me something to work with? If they're contacting you, the content, what are they saying? Contact isn't seeing lights in the sky. That's this whole thing that people think I'm an experiencer. Well, you've seen lights in the sky. I've hit 7, 8. I don't consider him a contactee because even one contact, 20 feet away. Okay, still, it's not contact. So he never could provide anything, nothing that could be tested beyond lights in the sky. Now, Area 51 is, and information from Meier goes back long prior to Gilliland's claims. That's a place where the government has in development alternative crafts, many interesting things go on there. They're pretty secret. So what I'm trying to say, I'm not trying to diss anybody. If you have people that come forward to claim, in effect, the most important story, development, occurrence in all of science and human history, my golly, give me something tangible to work with. I wouldn't say you didn't see orbs. I wouldn't say you didn't film them. I wouldn't say you don't have see craft, lights in the sky. Maybe, I wouldn't even say that some being didn't appear to you. I wouldn't say that. I'd say, okay, but for the sake of the value, apart from subjective experience for you and getting on shows and things to lecture about your experience, you have to do better than that, because this isn't just another thing. See, this is where the government's been very clever. They've turned it as much as possible into just another trendy story.
Right.
Well, I've got nothing negative to say about Bledsoe or any of those people that I'm saying, look, that's great, because I've looked at other evidence. 46 years, I've had a chance to see many things about cases and all. Who cares? Who cares about my experiences? Why?
Are you saying that, like, whistleblowers, like the most recent Jake Barber, who, I don't know if you had a chance to see the video of the egg, are you saying that's government?
I would say this: it's inconclusive, screamingly inconclusive. As for Jake Barber and Grush and these other people, I have sent information to all of them. Whenever I find there's a new whistleblower, oh, it's great, new whistleblower, and he's got a story. By the way, I think a lot of these whistleblowers are telling what is the truth as far as they are concerned. And it has two other possibilities. One, the thing that they claim to have seen happened and it exists. Or in some cases, because you better understand this has been done, folks, they have been prepared without their own knowledge via hypnosis or drugs or whatever, to believe that they've had certain experiences. Story goes, even certain astronauts were dealt with that way. And I won't go into that right now. If you ever want to, it is explained how Apollo 11 was done.
Yeah.
And what happened with Apollo 13 and the Mars material. But let's just stay there for a minute with this. None of these whistleblowers who seemingly are coming forward with this historical, unprecedented evidence of an egg in a basket, great, happy Easter. They do not want, they will not respond to this. The best evidence, because as soon as they click and they start looking at this, they realize, of course, that they're dealing with triviality. Who cares if, look, there's an egg in a basket under something being dragged around. When people see Billy's films and video, when they see Billy step into camera with a UFO hovering in front of a tree in broad daylight, we're on a different level.
Yeah, well, that's true that Billy does have the most documentation, I guess. How many books did he write now, Billy?
Said he's got over 60 books written.
Yeah.
Here's the funny thing. The majority of those books are not having to do with UFOs, because the underlying reason, remember, what's the reason for these contacts, the key to our future survival? And then there's other shoes to drop here where people can actually read and study what the reason is and how it relates to us, and they don't have to believe a darn thing. It's non-religious, it's belief-free, it's a teaching. It's a teaching.
Speaking of the video, because it's so compelling, I'd like to show, this is from, folks, you can check this out on Michael's website, which is theyflyblog.com. So you can see the link too running across the screen. And if you go to my YouTube channel, Ethereal Encounters Unveiled, you'll see the links there. I have a few links there that I would like you to check out from Michael as well. But let's watch this because this is pretty mind-blowing. You want to narrate some of it, Michael?
The Pentagon and the U.S. government lied to you for decades about the reality of UFOs. Now they want you to believe that they're coming clean and revealing the truth. Despite spending $110 million on their phony program, they couldn't find Billy Meier's freely available UFO films and photos. And despite all efforts by skeptics to this day to duplicate them, Meier's material remains irreproducible. This film was taken by Billy Meier in 1976, long before computers and digital effects. Billy Meier zooms in on the UFO, and we see two lights go on and off in broad daylight. And you're now listening to the actual sound of the craft. And Meier's wide-awake, voluntary face-to-face contacts with the Plejaren extraterrestrial human beings continue to this day, ongoing now for over 75 years. These are some of Meier's authentic, still irreproducible films of actual extraterrestrial UFOs that the government doesn't want you to see, to know about, or to think about. Yet the Pentagon couldn't find this free evidence and information despite spending $110 million of your money. Billy Meier is also the source of the most abundant, specific, and accurate prophecies in all of human history. Now that you know, the only question is what you will do about it.
Now, for those of you that are listening, you can see this video. As I said, I have the link on my YouTube channel. I mean, that's pretty mind-blowing stuff.
Yeah, it is.
It really is.
You know, if I may, I woke up this morning with an idea, and the idea was this. I have 4, call them all films. 3 are actual, like, film movie things. One, I call it, the first one, I call it a lectumentary because it's basically me narrating a lot of information, a lot of evidence, an overview. And that was my first production in 2004. It's about an hour and a half long. So here's what I'm thinking. I have a shop, and we have Billy's books in there that have been translated, the ones that have been translated into English. And we've got other things, ebooks and videos and all. So here's my crazy offer. If your viewers and listeners, anybody wants to go to our blog, they'll find the link to the bookstore. If they get anything, that bookstore, I think we have things like really, really inexpensive. If they get anything and they just put in a request, make sure that I get it, like even send me an additional email, say, I want the free offer. I'm going to send them the downloads for all 4 of our films. And Meier is in these films, the prophecies and predictions, the warn. This is like a library for people if they want to be well, prepared. And this is you're showing the, WC UFO in Times Square because this was something where a PR company said, gee, if you take out a press release, we'll show this, in Times Square. And they did it after I took out by the way, the press release company, as of beginning in about 2020, they refused to put out press releases that I was providing them to because there was a situation going on in the world. People were ill here and there, China and all that. And I had information that was being provided to me. Oh, yeah, these are the books. Thank you for showing that. These books are very important because I know I just jumped from what I was saying. So I hold that up a second and I'll try to, let's complete the thought. I have a whole thing online where we've published 44 examples of where the extraterrestrials provided Billy Meier specific information. We get first to publish it in English. We publish it before the WHO ever knows about it, or the CDC, error-free, every single one, accurate, some dating back to the 40s about this funny worldwide situation we had starting in 2020, dating back to the 40s, the predictions about it. So what you're looking at here, these are downloads of 4 books, which are collector's items right now. You can't get them for but $350, $1,000 a piece, whatever. And these are the first translations of about 1,800 pages of the communications, the conversations that Billy Meier was having since 1975 to about 78 or so with these people. Now, what's so compelling about these? Well, a couple things. One, Billy wasn't nuts about the translations because there was errors in there. There were errors in these translations, and they finally would be corrected. There would be grammar or the wrong word, whatever, certain things that were not right in there, but they're invaluable because it means that anybody listening to this, let's say some people want to get that, so they get the downloadable books, and again, that that's more of a high ticket item. If you want it, you get all 4 volumes of that. It's pretty good. Or you get a $15 download. You're going to get all 4 of the films, because then with those books, with the films, you can go right to, especially in the books, the copyrights. And you can find out information where Meier specifically foretells the damage to the ozone, ties it into atomic bomb explosions, ties it into nuclear testing and all this stuff. Pages, over several pages. And interestingly enough, I got those transcripts that those books were based on. I was given those in 1986. I met a guy in a cafe in Sedona, Arizona. He lived up in the canyons in Los Angeles, Decker Canyon, I think it was. Hey, when you come back to LA, come up. I'll give you these transcripts. Oh, good. I came back. I went up. He gave them to me. I'm reading and reading, and I'm just, oh my God, for 2 years. At about 2-year point, there's suddenly a new discovery by a world-famous laboratory, Lawrence Livermore National Laboratories. What's the discovery? A-bomb testing tied to ozone damage, percentages of ozone. And I'm looking at this headline, and they're talking about these percentages, and I go, whoa, wait a minute. I already know this. How could I know this? It's a new discovery.
Wow.
Under the bed, I pull out the transcripts. And of course, these books by 86, all of these books have been published already. And I find it in the first 100 pages, early on, 75, 76. Billy's being told about the nuclear connection, the A-bomb testing, the explosions and all, to the ozone damage. And they're telling him a lot of stuff. They also cover the ozone damage due to bromine gases. And they tell him to contact a scientist at Harvard named Michael McElroy. I looked up, a real person. He ultimately, in later pages, he says, well, I contacted the guy, but he won't write me back. What else is new? I know what that's like. But here it is. And I'm going, wait a minute. That's when I started to think this is about something bigger than UFOs. How could this man know this? And I'm just like a neophyte. Then the next thing comes up, 1990 or so, scientist up in Stanford University in Northern California, earthquakes, oil interact. Sometimes I remember his name, sometimes I don't, but we've got it all. And I'm reading it. I said, wait a minute. That's what Billy wrote. He predicted that in 1976, literally. He's told in 1976 all about the dangers of the extraction of petroleum, natural gas, the mining of ores, the overbuilding of big cities, how the earth will fall in upon itself. Can you say sinkholes? And every time,
there's so many of them happening.
Right?
They're even happening where I live. It's crazy.
Here's the thing. One of the things I found was I decided, and I don't know if it's true about all sinkholes, but the ones I've looked up, by golly, I looked up, like, let's say in such and such a place, there's a sinkhole. Then I look up the name of that area and I say, mining in such and such on the internet. Lo and behold, so far, the ones I've found, they've had some kind of mining going on in the vicinity or extraction of, oil.
Yeah.
Now, no, a known phenomenon. Billy, it's in those books. You put that thing up there. It's in there. It's in the films I'm going to give away to people. So I just want the world to have this. There's $100 value worth of free films. Buy the cheapest thing you want if you want. You can't go wrong. If you buy one of Billy's books, and Billy's books are more expensive than the $25 film, but this is about a teaching. It's not about, we've got to make
exactly. It's about a teaching. We have a good question from Rexman. He says, with serious health issues of Pope Francis, will he be the last pope as prophesized? And does Billy have anything to say about World War III breaking out? Any news on that?
Well, World War III and the Pope. Nothing in the most recent documents about the Pope. Remember, of course, because, prophecies, because that's in the Hanok prophecies, and prophecies can and should be changed by people's actions or by a circumstance that kind of takes us off of that dead-end course where that thing's going to happen. There has been talk regarding the prophecies that the prophecies about the Pope may not be the ones that come true. And this is one of the very few things they said that may have changed. There's some one other thing I'll have to think about it. We'll have to see, because in the prophecies, they're talking about Petrus Romanus as a final pope. And when Francis came in, people saying, well, that's no Petrus Romanus. I said, no, it certainly isn't. Maybe this guy, maybe he's wrong about that. I mean, if I may say so, Billy didn't write the Hanok prophecies. Those are the actual prophecies of Enoch, the prophet Enoch, thousands of years ago. And they're pretty wild considering what's in them. Okay. Now, World War III. I'm wondering, because I just wrote on my own blog, I wrote a comment to somebody. I'm saying, Donald Trump's supposed to meet with Putin and there's supposed to be a peace deal. Maybe this whole thing about World War III can be off the table, because it's in the Hanok prophecies. Russia and America will clash with great force, secret weaponry. And there's something else I don't want to forget to mention about this prophecy, despite what I'm about to say. So I wrote on my own, I said, this, maybe this is a hopeful trend here or something. And then I said, of course, in 1982, Billy, when he was still giving some interviews and he was doing it in fairly good English, he gives an interview to a guy in Switzerland. And towards the end of this interview, I don't know if it's 45 minutes, whatever, something comes up about World War III. And Billy says, well, I don't know if I should mention that. And the guy says, well, let people decide for themselves. Tell us. He says, okay, well, that will happen with certainty. And so the guy says something about the U.S. or something. And he says, well, no, the first thing for the actual Third World War will involve Russia and the UK, and then smaller countries, he says, like Iraq, Iran, and Israel.
Oh boy. Yeah.
Are we not sitting here and holding our breath? So we have to see, keep our fingers crossed if you want to play that game. But look, may they please avert it. Now, I don't think, but who would think, it's got to happen next 15 minutes or next year, that World War III. A lot of things depend on what happens with the NATO countries and what kind of pressures they try to put on and conditions for people. So Billy the guy says to him something and he says, oh no, it will happen with certainty. So, and he says it also, and he mentioned even back then, he said it involves the Falklands will also be involved. And I'm not sure why, but Britain and Argentina, the Falklands, it pops up in the news every now and then. Okay, so we can say, look, if that information is wrong, we can rejoice. I'm not going to go, oh, gee, Billy's wrong about World War III. No, it's just that there are some heavy duty things here. The thing I was going to mention in this document is there are several paragraphs specifically warning about the Third World War, where they speak about the kind of weaponry. It will not only be, let's say conventional, it'll go to biological, later nuclear, and computer controlled weapons.
Right.
Computer controlled weapons is another term also for what? Two letters do we now see everywhere? The letters A and the letter B.
Yeah, we're going to get to that. But first, I wanted to ask you, Billy had said there aren't enough shovels to bury the truth. And that's the truth. An article on your website, theyflyblog.com, Billy talks about 2 terroristic attacks at this point that were widely believed to be conducted by American ISIS operatives. Can you clarify that?
I'm trying to remember exactly. There were 2 attacks. I think a truck attack. These were, in the past few months, I believe it was.
Right.
And they're not the only ones, because Meier was given information in, I think it's 2016, and he had asked about things to do with sleepers and all that, and he asked the Playaran about it. And at that time in 2016, there were already, according to them, over 1,400 ISIS state sleepers, along with 171,000 other potential terrorists in the U.S. That's going back 9 years. There were already 1,400. The last treasonous administration that was governing this country, that was exploiting and selling out our country. By the way, not politically partisan. It's just simply, it's pretty obvious. There are plenty of criticisms of the current administration. We'll leave that for the moment. But the administration that was in place committed a vast treason and exploitation, just a cynical, thoughtless, barbaric disregard for the citizens of this country, and have endangered and increased the danger. If in 2016 there were already 1,400 plus, 171,000, what do we think the numbers are now, with the floodgates have been just opened and washed away by the insanity? By the way, in the Meier material, dating back to the 40s, they specifically foretold the migrant crisis. It would originate in Europe. There would be a crazy woman leader who would open the floodgates in Europe, and that would be the beginning of 250 to 300 million migrants all over the world, and it's not over, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this is, as you look at things like this, there is nothing of importance that has not been addressed, most likely for decades, in this material, so that the people of Earth could find it and determine the truthfulness for themselves, not be forced into it by extraterrestrials who show themselves and distract or frighten people and land and all this crazy stuff. No, here it is, figured out. We've given you legal scientific standards of proof. If you have working brain cells, or if you know people that do, that'll help you out, they'll explain to you why that is ironclad, why the evidence is ironclad, according to a man named Joe Tisk, United States Air Force Office of Special Investigation, Department of Defense supervisor, who interrogated me for 3 months back in 2017. He was a skeptic, and then he came around and said, hey, this is the real deal, and here's why, and anybody that thinks their way through this will come to the right conclusion. this guy wasn't into UFOs. He thought it was a big hoax. He was going to bust it and bust me. I thought, well, he didn't tell me who he was for 3 months of conversations. Only when he came back later, hey, I'll tell you who I am and about your Billy Meier case. Oh. So this is not ufology. This is not the paranormal. Whatever that other stuff is, UFO sightings, whistleblowers, my cynical opinion is it never has and never will amount to anything, because they'd have to come to this. This is the only existing case overflowing with independently authenticated evidence, hardcore. Why?
And what I'm showing right now, by the way, you applied for press credentials.
Yeah, good luck, right?
Yeah, right. I mean, it can't hurt to try, right?
I had to do this. I just had to do it.
Absolutely. You have links to everything in here.
Sure.
And when we see a statement like this, is this coming from the Polarans, or is this Billy's commentary? Like, you have 227, they're all documented, in numbers.
I think that one's from the Hanok prophecies. Yes, because it says here, remember, whereby it will also happen that computerized weapons, AI, please remember what he's talking about here, folks, become independent and cannot be controlled any longer by human beings. That's 87. But recently he's elaborated. He said, look, the extermination of humankind can occur from this. The prognosis for your survival is not good, because why? Because somehow humankind, in its fascination with all things glittery and technological, came upon technologies that it shouldn't have encountered and developed for 1,500 to 2,000 years. We are incapable, because this is so appealing to the greediest of the greedy. And that includes the Sam Altmans and the Elon Musks and the, Bill Gates and you name it. They just can't wait to control everything through AI, and they're so arrogant, they do not realize that the vulnerability here is they will be controlled. We will be hunted. This isn't just science fiction. People start to get a grip. Meier foretells the computerized interconnection of computers around the world. When? 1958. Meier foretells the biochipping of every man, woman, and child on the face of the earth by the US and the EU. When did he do that? 1958. Folks, that's why, look, David Grush, this one, that one, the other. If these people, in my opinion, this is where I don't care what they've seen.
Yeah.
Bizarre. Oh, I've seen all this. Who cares? You're still alive. Billy Meier, people try to kill him 25 times. So why is Bob Lazar wondering, this and the sports model, everything's trendy and cutesy?
Did Billy talk about the BRIC states and about the world he did?
Yes. One of the things that he said, and he didn't spend a lot of time, he's mentioned it a couple of times, BRICS, what is that? Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. This would be the new economic powerhouse.
Right.
Now, Donald Trump, in his uniquely boorish and clumsy and bullying manner, has threatened the BRICS. We've got them over a barrel. Okay. And again, we're not partisan. We don't care about Republicans and Democrats. I am personally very cynical. I don't think politics is the root of a lot of our trouble in this world. And it never really solves, because it's always going to be aggression, violence, threats, power. That isn't human relationships. If that's human relationships, which is the way this country has historically conducted international relationships as well, that's why we're on the downturn. Billy had said after 2020, the superpower USA may cease to exist, meaning as a superpower, we will no longer be on the top of the thing, and it'll be a decline. It'll take its time. We're in it. He also foretold the collapse of the dollar. But, BRICS, just to go into it, we're not going to intimidate these people. Russia, Putin and others who step into his shoes. They're very, I'd say, smart, clever, long-suffering people who've endured hundreds of years of aggression from other parties. They've never attacked us, and yet we're hell-bent. We violated a treaty. The U.S. got in and secretly provided first assistance in Ukraine for this war, has been arming them, sending Americans money by the billions and billions. They have bankrupted, in a sense, this country when things started getting even more on the table. Cynical, an old demented guy with his dope addict son wandering around, funneling money to all of the shills, and maybe on both sides of the aisle. I don't know, and I don't care.
Yeah.
Not spell success. So in 2006, I'm in Switzerland, probably in May, and it just pops in my mind that Billy's outside of me right there, and I say, Billy, tell me this. Is the Iraq war fundamentally about oil? And I'm expecting, well, of course it is. What do you think? You ask. It's just, what? He goes, no, fundamentally, it's about your dollar. And if things go a certain way, he says to me in 2006, you may as well roll cigarettes with your paper money.
He told you this in 2006, Billy.
Mm-hmm. 2005 or 6, because I put it up in 2006 on the internet. It's there, my little video, my little bald head there. I just had a conversation with, I'm telling the whole thing. It's there, folks. And I'm going, what? That doesn't sound too good. So in 2017, Billy comes out with a rather long document of predictions, and some are prophecies, but a lot of predictions about the coming cashless society.
Yeah, boy, was that.
Right? Global financial crash, how the people of the world will be dispossessed by the elites who are just going to keep on sucking up everything. The American people, he puts it in there, I think it's number 30 or 31. The American people will be dispossessed, and the government will turn the police and the military against the partly heavily armed populace. Now, that one was a mind-bogger for me even more recently because, again, 2017, 8 years ago, because I'm thinking, well, wait a minute. Could we possibly see Trump turning the, military and police against the populace? We always think about the heavily armed populace as the right wing. Maybe it's the, all the crazies on the left that would start to attack. I don't know, but there's information in there, and there will be. See, people have been calling Bill Gates and Fauci are the evil people behind a situation we've had here. No, they're not. They may be behind another aspect of it. It really goes back to the 40s, goes back to a Chinese leader named Mao Zedong and a disgraced and humiliated American president named Richard Nixon. Maybe some people in your audience, also know who these people are. So he talks in there about coming very serious things that elites are going to try to do to groups of people, really. There's so much information in Meier's material. It's stacked, and it covers so many things that you think, no, that can't be real. That can't happen.
Yeah.
Civil wars coming to America?
Yeah.
Which is that for the first time in 1981. I tell the story. I said to people, I'm with this guy where I know right where we were on Westwood Avenue in an apartment in LA. I'm reading it in this 1986 publication. It's 1987 probably. And I laugh out loud. And I say, I'm not laughing. Who's laughing about the polarization in the country?
Oh, good Lord. I want to talk to you about AI. Now, it kind of freaks me out. I want to play this video.
Yeah. That's not the first time that something like that's happened.
I mean, look at this. Look at this. And they told us AI could never harm humans. They have a built-in code that prevents them from harming humans. I mean, scary stuff.
It's scary because let's remember something. AI is created and programmed by human beings and we cannot be sure, absolutely positive of
Right.
who and what every person. No, because so many people are so greedy and so power hungry, and a lot of them are nuts, and they can be in high levels of technology, and they can. There are, even before that, there have been reports over some years, really, about people being killed by robots and different things.
Yeah.
And of course, it's kind of like reports of the whistleblowers. You hear it, and then it's seemingly irrelevant. So,
Well, yeah, because there's so many false flags. It's always like, look over here while something else is going on, and that they don't want us to see. So, what about Sam Altman and Billy? What's the connection there? That Billy had some warnings, I think, or was that just about AI specifically?
AI specifically, and you know, I, I've referred to the people that are close around the current administration as the Billionaire Boys Club, and it doesn't really bode well for people. See, this is strictly my opinion here,
Yeah.
and that is that many of us, me included, were glad to see some of this corruption seemingly being taken to task and exposed. But okay, let's not get too excited about it, because both sides of the aisle have players that are heavily benefiting from all sorts of stuff. And Billy long ago wrote about people will not ultimately be too happy with what Elon Musk is doing. So who knows exactly what that means? There's plenty. We have to learn that we are responsible. This is the core of the case. Each human being is responsible 100% for our own lives, our thoughts, the feelings we have, the thoughts we have, and the actions we take, because that is the core of the reality of human life and the world and all the rest. And what Meier's books are so brilliant about and so relatable is how the person who starts to read these books, having no previous experience and not being asked to believe anything, starts to come to the place where they start thinking about what they're reading and then testing it out in their own lives. All I can tell you is there are a lot of people that are kind of happy and quiet about it, not rushing around to say, oh man, life's great. You really want to go out and start telling everybody how great life is because you're learning things that are setting you free. Maybe
Just
not so fast.
anything specifically about Donald Trump, about President Trump? Does he? I think we've talked about this a little bit before. What does he have to say about?
Really want to know? Okay. As I said, these are equal opportunity offenders.
Yeah.
And Meyer has written a couple recent blogs, and he has essentially said he's not in his right mind.
Oh, jeez.
He's a megalomaniacal madman, unpredictable, who's going to, now that he's in office with no limitations really in certain ways. Oh, yes, he'll have to do this and do that and to push things through. He is going to create tremendous, as if he hasn't already, upheavals. It isn't producing a good outlook. This comes from a neutral place where they observe people and their behavior. And again, for what it's worth, as I've said, certain information proves that Meier and whoever is helping him are time travelers who have gone into the past and have gone into the future. And if anybody wants to read it, they're going to be mad about this or say, oh, I don't want to have anything to do with that because Donald Trump is St. Donald. Look, it doesn't change in politics. People are saying, Alex Jones, perpetually hysterical Alex Jones. I'm wondering, here's a guy that supposedly owes billions of dollars to people. He's still online and he's still out there doing just fine. And he's hysterical as ever. And we're chasing the globalists away. So if you and I owed, I'm talking on something else going on there, in my opinion, and I have my suspicions about it. But here's the thing: he can go and say all this stuff about chasing the globalists and we're winning, and all. There are powers beneath the powers that we think are the globalists, the evil elite.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Right?
when did he say that about, when did Billy say those things about the president? How long ago was that?
Well, some of this, he has said it in the past. See, if people go to my blog and they put in the word Trump, they'll find articles going back to about 2014 or whatever it is. And then within the last, let's say in the last 6 weeks, I think, or less, there have been 2 articles out, and they featured it prominently, warning, this man is off the deep end. Look,
I was wondering if the Polarin said anything about him, like if they predicted anything about Trump. They did.
Yeah, you see, my thinking, just for what it's worth here, and then we can come back. This is a man who, rightly or wrongly, has been in a barrage of unprecedented pressure, massive attacks. Again, I don't have much to say about it, except I will only say that at least a good portion of it is because of his own actions, ill thought out somewhere. And some of it's just vengeful, purely unfounded, whatever. He's been under enormous attack, notwithstanding a bullet, going towards his ear there. So anybody,
I don't ask that to get political. I ask as part of the prophecies, like if the Polarin warned Billy about, America, the state of America, what was happening in the future, stuff like that.
Yeah, well, the warnings about America, the future, as I said, one of them, I think it was back from 2012, they said 2020 will be the turning point when America will decline away from being a superpower. Somebody's...
My dog.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's barking up a storm.
And there's another thing, and I'm going to say, listen.
Come here, baby.
Trump has been virtually embracing Benjamin Netanyahu.
Right.
Netanyahu, pardon me, I call him Netanyahu. I call them Zion Nazis. And first, it must be said, there are great people living in Israel, in Palestine, here and there. But there are people who are so maniacal. On the one side, you get Hamas and Hezbollah.
Yeah.
And Meier warned about them a long time ago. Al-Qaeda, ISIS, and then you've got...
There's so many terrorist organizations out there. And I know I've read that, Oliver, get over here. He's being a bad boy today. I've read that, he did have a lot to say about that in terms of predictions. Now, it has to be worth mentioning that Billy also predicted events in the pandemic, like way before the pandemic as well.
Yes.
But I want folks to understand that Billy's predictions go really deep. And the only way you could really appreciate them is to take time and read about them, because there's so many, and he was spot on about so many of them. And I know you and I talked about the prediction of the pandemic, and maybe you can just reiterate some of that prediction.
Right. Well, this is what I was alluding to before. This pandemic was not started by Gates and Fauci. Billy Meier is the first person on record, starting in 2019, to publish that this originated in the Wuhan lab, which is what the CIA recently published, that they determined. We put out a press release on that. The press release company has since removed it. Fortunately, I have it online showing it. People are very down on the idea of masks and all this stuff, but quite logically, they warned at the time, this is 2020, February 2020, they said, if people will mask and enforce removals from society for a while, en masse, the disease can't spread. You don't have to rely on people having mass immunity and all this other stuff. They said children are going to be immune until they're not. They're going to be the hidden spreaders. I've got, in the first thing they dropped on us, 12 things. We have 44 of them now. And some
Yeah.
of the dating, when they talked about the medication and how well it would or wouldn't, they talked about literally use the term in 40s breakthrough nations. We talked about women having miscarriages.
Yeah,
All
the
the
whole thing. Yeah, it's quite incredible. So, do you think that these predictions were given to us by the Plaren so that we can intervene and be knowledgeable enough to stop them, change the course of history? So, not everything is etched in stone, depending on our actions. Am I right?
That's the idea right there. Now, we're realists here. Let's go. And I'm all for what you're saying, and I only wish, hope, whatever, that people, your audience, will go, well, what could I do here, folks? Get one of Meier's books. I'm going to give you $100 worth of free films and all this. You can know that this is real, and that no, it's not about fluffy aliens, just scary beings or whatever. This is about warnings from a more advanced human race who's gone through in their history all the grief. It's not there's no such thing as perfect space brothers. This is human beings who said, listen, our forefathers, it goes back millions of years. They were space travelers. They invaded worlds. They destroyed places. We didn't have peace in our world until 52,000 years ago, and we maintain it now. We don't allow it. We're not coming to set down on your planet and start screwing things up. So you got to work it out. So as you said, this is why I said this is the higher standard of proof. You know what? Put it this way. Pardon me. Here we go. We got all these great photos. We got films. You showed some. But you still can have skeptics go, well, I don't believe. Okay, fine. We don't care. It's real. But why should it stop there? Why not make it so that good people who aren't photo experts and can't really explain why themselves, they can try. But what if somebody goes and they open a book, they get a downloadable book, whatever you want to do, and you're reading something and you look at the copyright date, and you can search, you'll find out this was published then. I mean, it's a step. This is so mind-blowing, but we're so clumped with phenomena all the time. Oh, UFOs, flying alien. No, folks, this man is one simple, nice, one-armed man in Switzerland. He's probably about 200 and something years old by now with all the time travel stuff. And this is not to make it too wild. He's 88. That's fine. He's only 88, but he's been flying around with these folks since he's 5. And he's published these things because not just they told him, they took and showed him, as they showed Enoch, Elijah, Jeremiah, Emmanuel, the real name of the man known as Jesus Christ, somebody for whom there is actually zero historical record, but there was a man, his name's Emmanuel. We have the original writings of Emmanuel.
Yeah.
Very close to the book of Matthew, but different. This is outside of, has to be made so ordinary in a way because it's so outside of all human experience. Yeah, nice little guy, he flies around with them, he takes pictures, they fly him around. Other people in Switzerland accidentally, they've seen them, but they're not supposed to get close, but accidentally maybe 15 people already. Other photographers, yes, about 5 other photographers been out there too, caught the ships. But let's just slide that aside and let the UFO circus run on, because you're never going to get the truth from this government or any other one. But you can find it for yourself. These are the films that the Pentagon doesn't want you to know about. And more importantly, this is information.
Michael, you're at the level where you're past wanting concrete disclosure and proof, because obviously you've read all of Billy's books. You're a student of Billy for decades and decades. People like me, I just learned about Billy a few years ago through you. And, I'm getting there. I still continue to go on your blog and I'm reading stuff when I get time. But people want disclosure. People want the truth. They're sick of being lied to. they know that, like with Billy, that there's so much more. It's not just about pictures of aircraft. It's not just about that stuff. But with that said, people still want disclosure. They still need to know, do aliens, the Polarans, even though that's not really who they are, right?
No,
I
they
mean,
are, and they're not Pleiadians. Yeah,
they're not Palladians, right?
Right.
But they are Polarans. I mean,
Pleiadians.
and Billy knows where they come from.
Yeah, it
in
doesn't matter
person.
too much because we can't do anything with like 500 light years out there or something. Yes, he knows he's been taken to their world and other worlds. He's seen lots of stuff, but
Right.
he's just living here. Disclosure, first of all, do not rely on your so-called leaders or anybody. They will not disclose this. They are not ever going to. I got a phone call from a national security advisor to a U.S. subcommittee back about in 2022 or 3 because they heard about I had certain photos that we discovered there were a U.S. stealth plane interacting with one of the UFOs from the Meier case. Oh, do you want? Yeah, we'd like to have those. Oh, it's very impressive. Let's send them. So I made copies, digital. Pardon me. They censored them. They censored them. And so this is where the people have to understand, if they want to, don't rely on your government to tell you the truth about anything. They may sometimes be telling you the truth. I'm not saying they're always lying, but there's too much vested interest in keeping this shut up. Can you imagine that if the photos we sent them would show a non-hostile interaction between a top secret military plane and one of the UFOs, bunch of photos, they're dancing around, they're not hurt.
These photos have been debunked in terms of authentic, like you've had authorities come in and prove that these photos are legit. They're not Photoshop. There was no Photoshop when they were taken.
We found they were taken in the mid-'80s. There's no Photoshop.
And you've had authorities prove that these photos have not been edited, nor has the video.
One of the guys was a photo expert formerly with Kodak. And when we corresponded, he explained why the photos were legit. Also, by the way, Jaime Maussan, big UFO investigator in Mexico, there's a guy that he worked with who did a whole montage showing how and why the photos are real. But this guy wrote to it, and because my main question was, it looked to me like the photos were real. I said, okay. And he said, yeah, those two objects are there at the same time. The plane appears to be moving a little. The UFO is stationary. I said, what I really want to know is what's that information on the back of the photo? He says, oh, that's I knew it was the processing for Kodak. I said, so when is that? He says, well, from what I can tell, that's the 1980s. Billy didn't take him. Wendell Stevens, the lead military investigator, was helped by one of the contact people, one of the extraterrestrials who knew when this plane would be flying. The whole story. And my webmaster's done all this in-depth research, blew up the photos of the plane. It's the only camouflage stealth that they had. We knew who the pilot was. But you're not going to, this government, if they admit, now, of course, because they've suppressed this for so long, well, there's Billy Meier in Switzerland. Oh, yeah, and people find the information that they can find. It's a relatively small number. We reach people wherever we can. You certainly helped. But if people find it, do you think this government wants people to know the true history of this country? The assassinations, the unprovoked wars, the false flags, the criminal that Billy Meier was told in 1953 about the assassination of the Kennedys, that we're just not going to get. Don't wait for them, and don't worry about it. Get disclosure for yourself. See, here's the thing. It's such a joke. Every time Stephen Greer, I think we all know who he is, he comes out, and here's this very serious thing. Within the next 30 hours, it's always BS.
So it's so frustrating, Michael, because I don't want to say anything negative about Stephen Greer because I just don't. But
he's a liar, but I would never tell people.
Well, I'll let you say it. But the thing, when money gets involved in this, it's so polluted with this. Let's just say that the whole thing upsets me. And then you've got these congressional hearings that turn out to be hogwash as well. It's like a tap dance show. They get up there and now, real quickly, I just want to let Stone Hobbit know we talked about the luminous spheres, and if you back up, if you replay, you'll be able to hear Michael's commentary. Some of them are said to be angelic, and Michael did address that question a little bit ago.
I could say a little more if you want on that.
Yeah.
Angelic is a human make-believe thing according to this information. Okay. Angelic. Okay. What you have here, first of all, the terrestrial UFO thing is pretty big. The development on Earth by certain governments, secret military, goes back 100 years. This is not, we've got aliens everywhere. Very advanced craft. They're not anywhere near advanced as this, but there's another element. And Billy, we have a video of him explaining it. There are at least 3 other groups underground. One of the groups, has been here for a very long time. Their forefathers were some of the gods of the, let's say, Middle Eastern and Egyptian area and or South and Central America. Their craft are seen in the skies. They've been here floating around where we were noticing them for the past hundreds of years, Billy said. They haven't made any contact. They're not abducting anybody. And for our level of technology, they're very advanced. They're not advanced compared to the Plejaren. But our government occasionally makes the mistake of firing at their craft. We shouldn't do that because at a certain point, if they've had enough of that, you're going to see some unfortunate thing. Maybe that doesn't happen, at least for a while, because in the predictions from 87, when things go south, if they do, in a World War way, these hidden descendants of extraterrestrials will make themselves known and come to the aid of the forces opposing the Western invaders.
Wow.
Come to the aid. Forget it. That's toast if that happens. Now, there's another group that it also observes here on Earth, and they are the future time travelers who don't know what they look like. So there's some survivors to whatever the worst that may happen. And some that they come from a future time, probably several hundreds of years. So these things, according to this information, go on. But we have to understand, because something's extraterrestrial, because something's supposedly from future, doesn't make it better, doesn't make it more important than you and your own life to learn about the things that most of these other groups know about, the way things really work in this universe with the Plejaren study, and that Billy Meier teaches them as well as providing it to us. What more can we ask for? Forget about, I want to meet this, I'm channeling, forget it's irrelevant. Has anything ever come of that except nonsense? No. But if you had experience of certain sort of, you think, look, I've had a strange experience in 72, and I published the information, and it all came true. So what? Who cares now? Oh, one of the things in that information was full-blown holographic, virtual, interactive reality stuff without glasses and with a psychological component and blah, 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 a lot of healing stuff. Great. I wrote a little book about it, how you can use it. I did sessions on people in this. And then I thought, well, I can't do it. This is in the 80s. It happens in 72. I have this experience. And then this keep on being reminded to get a video camera, oh yeah, I'm supposed to do these future self sessions. So I get a camera, I do these sessions on people, very interesting results. And then I put it aside. I create another therapy course for people.
I see what you're saying, that it amounts to, well, I hear you. I hear you, Michael, what you're saying. That, like, I had a guest on a few weeks ago, and he was able to telepathically communicate with these orbs. And he was out walking his dog, and he sent this message through psionics telepathically, and took his phone out. Everybody's got a camera with them now, and see these orbs coming up from behind the tree. Just at that moment that he asked for them to show up.
What?
So, but the point is you can't, like here, she just stated that she has footage taken of these beings back in 2010. They came into her house and morphed. You can't. Yes, this 5 years from now, nobody will remember that. True. But this is a personal experience that you have. Why are we having these experiences? Why?
You just said something very important. Let's say this person that thought about and sent his thoughts to these orbs. So he had an intention to do
Yes.
something and it occurred, right? Well, strangely enough, on even more mundane or even more exotic levels than that, one of Meier's greatest books, it's called Might of the Thoughts. And it teaches people how to learn to develop their thinking, how to, I was going to say channel, I'll use the word direct it, monitor it, check things. See, this idea of, there was this whole thing about what was this, the secret, supposedly, law of attraction.
Absolutely.
A friend of mine I know this guy, and he's very well off. And I was with him and his family one day, and somehow, I think it was his mother, said something. And I said, "Oh, have you seen that film?" And they said, "Yeah, we've both seen the film." I said, "Well, what did you think?" They said, "Well, they left something out there." I said, "What's that?" There's a price for everything. It's not just a mail order, put down I want this, I want that, I want this. It's not that you can't have, and these are people that are very successful people. Not that you can't have things, but there's a price. There's a way to get the things so that they actually have value, not just you're going to attract trinkets in your life. Now,
so Billy wrote a book about this, about teaching folks how to. What's the name of that book again?
The book is called Might of the Thoughts. It's on our bookstore. People can find the linked from my blog. It's on my shop there. That's nice.
Yeah, no, it sounds like something I would want to read.
It's a book that I go to. I mean, all I have to do is open that book and I go, I don't remember him saying that. That's because this is a lot deeper than what we immediately grasp. Now, there's people that write books like that. Billy's books are all like that. You can read it once, you think you got it, or you think, oh, I don't know, it's difficult. Let me go back. Oh, really? But then there's nothing to make that you can grab to believe, because you have the opportunity to think about what is he saying here? How do I do that? He's making it clear. Some things are more advanced, if you will. But once you start getting this train of thought developed, you're going, wow, I see what he's talking about. Then what happens with a lot of people, that's why I said you don't have to run around, jump up and down, because you're starting to see things about life that you thought were under other people's control or you could never accomplish. Or whatever. You see from this, you learn something from the inner wisdom that we all have lying dormant. They have little epiphanies where they go, wait a minute. Then you're not having to run around and preach about Billy Meier. Really, I mean, I'm not doing this to preach about Billy Meier. I'm trying to get people to know that there is something that's worth looking at. Beyond that, it's yours to do or not do with. I'm happy to do this because I know it's important. And I'm not going to say, oh, you've got to do this and no. I say if you want to do anything of value, like you just took down the name of this one book, The Might of the Thoughts, at our bookstore. It's a book, a nice hardcover. They're not cheap. They're good because they're meant to last for a long time. And people end up with, if you have a library of one of Billy's books, I guarantee you could read it for years and always derive, because things that appear in your life from your work now reveal to you another level of thinking, and that is also very peace inducing. And the core foundation, Billy says, peace, love, and freedom. Oh, we hear these words and it's like just no, those are the foundation of success in life. Not I want to be a billionaire and have more money that I have to worry about protecting from other people than I can ever do. I can't ingest it. How many meals can I eat? But people think that's the measure of success. These are poor people very often. The ones that have the billions of dollars, they don't have They never get to the truly important things. Some do. Having money doesn't make you a bad person, but the focus on money and power and being billionaires, you forget it. What if you have a place you can take a walk? If there's some peace that you can enter into, if you have a good friend or a nice acquaintance, if you've got a good book that makes friends with your consciousness, and you start to feel, you start to know something different. It's not just that it happened 2 days ago. I'm still realizing this. This still works for me. What's the next chapter about? Some of it will be kind of foreign to your thinking because we're taught to, there's supposedly this God and that one, the savior, and this politician, and Elon Musk and Donald Trump. Look, I'll say one thing. 2 days or whatever after Billy Meier wrote this thing about the chaos that's coming from Trump puts out a video, and I have to say this. It's a crazy video. I think maybe many people have seen it now, and it's the Middle East. He's got belly dancers, some gold statue of himself. I found it so heartbreakingly offensive that 1 million people in the Palestinian group, good people among the Israel people, have been dying, and this guy's making a thing about turning Gaza into another.
Well, I mean, I think I saw past that. Yes, there are millions of people that I would imagine it would be a high number. I don't know exactly how many that have died. And it is tragic in every sense of the word. But he's trying to project a better future for both groups of people. I think instead of having rubble and mayhem and war, you can turn it into an oasis. And
only if you eliminate the people living there and move them out. That's what's so cynical about this. And you've got a gold statue of the guy who's going to do it.
In his defense, he said they would have to be allocated to other countries like Egypt and Turkey while it's being rebuilt. And then once it's built, he wants both people to live there in peace and harmony. Now, whether that's a flighted dream of his, I don't know. But I think that because he's a builder, he has that vision that I mean, it looks like a utopia to me.
Yeah, but there are no utopias.
Yeah, I mean, it would be wonderful if that would happen.
How would we feel if the Chinese leader said, we want to move the Americans out temporarily out of their country?
I know, but it's already devastated, though, Michael.
We've got to come to grips with that. People, like, we have a book. Let's say we're talking about the book, The Might of the Thoughts. When we learn, the individuals learn in alignment with true, eternal, universal values and laws of this universe, not man-made things, whether they're political or universal or religious things, but universal, really, principles and laws, we wouldn't think of doing the things that have led human beings,
right?
Kind of thing. So people can feel however they want about the president, anybody else. As I say, the last one in there, demented traitor to the country. What else are you going to say? In my opinion, forget about, like Billy said long ago, leadership will not come from the top down. It's the individual that must start to liberate themselves through education, self-education, peace, love, freedom, harmony. What does it mean to you? How do we do it? I can tell you in my own life, just with a person, I can bring any number of people into my mind and say to myself, have we always had peaceful? I just ran into an old friend recently, very recently. I've known this guy 55 years. We've had lots of experience. And the last go round wasn't harmonious. And we just happened to exchange some phone messages yesterday. Yeah, we really need to kind of reconnect, don't we? You've got harmony. What does it take? There's 2 notes always at least for a harmony. So if you're one of them and somebody else isn't, how do you harmonize without losing your integrity in the thing? How do they harmonize with you? Peace. You mean we're not always looking over at our shoulders? on a local or international level, we're not always in being stirred up to be fearful of the other.
I know, and Michael, that's such a great point. I think it's important to remember that the whole planet is developed to be a matrix, so to speak. Our financial system, the way that we were trained in school, our educational system, the food we drink, the water, the food we eat, the water we drink, everything is toxic and polluted. So the whole thing is like a global matrix, and including politics. So that's why I don't like to get into politics and talk, because you can say stuff about both parties, absolutely, but your message about love, light, sharing, caring, peace, that's all that matters. And I like that's part of Billy's message. Absolutely.
The biggest part of it, it's like what he says is, look, love is the interconnectedness, the
Right.
knowing that we all, we get politics and religion demonize, literally demonize another. And that means that if you have this belief or that belief, whether it's political or religious, you cannot be open to accepting, let alone embracing, something that comes up that's offered by another person who doesn't have your particular belief. That is called insanity.
Yes.
That is literal insanity. Wait a minute, your house is burning. Wait, there's a fireman. Well, excuse me, are you a Republican or a Democrat? Are you a Christian, Muslim? I mean, that's where it goes down to. So with this whole reality of realizing the realities of powers, religious, political, media, all are about something superior to another. And as long as leaders are thinking, we will be separated against our own best interest. The might of the thoughts, Billy's book, all of Billy's books, meditation, reincarnation, fluidal form, things that we don't even know exist, that make what we think is paranormal understandable. Oh, it's really that? Yes.
It is about divide and conquer. Absolutely. I agree with Stone Habit. So, believe it or not, our 2 hours is coming to a close.
Holy cow.
It flies when we talk. It always does. I will definitely ask you to come back again, because I still have plenty of questions for you. And I hope that you can manage that into your schedule. I'd love to have you back.
What I live to do.
What would you like to say in closing? Take it away.
We've come to, again, which is what I like about having our conversations, we come to the place where we speak about what's really important. It's great to have UFOs and extraterrestrials, but Billy doesn't any longer. This man is still currently traveling with these people when they look at the things happening in Ukraine and in Israel, and they report on it. And then you realize 7 days later, it's announced in the press. Okay, they do it. It's real. Fine. What can we do? Well, we could study the essential part. And that means, how did these beings, if you want to focus on the extraterrestrials, come to a place of great freedom? Thank you, Stone H. Evolve and give of themselves. If this is true, and it's really more than one man's amazing abilities, that there are beings that come from some vast, crazy distance without any ill intention. They ache for what they see here, what we are doing to ourselves. And someone is putting up, the Plejaren are not going to evacuate us if we do not come together and wake up. Billy started warning about this thing. I'm addressing something that's come on the screen. The asteroid Apophis that is threatening the Earth, it's going to come closer and closer. Meier warned about it in 1981. NASA discovered it 23 years later in 2004. They told him at that time, back then, that or one of the subsequent meetings, your scientists need to not try and blow it up, detonate a nuclear charge in a certain proximity. It will get nudged off course. Otherwise, April 13th, 2029, it slams into your world. And if it misses then, fortunately, it'll be back April 13th, 2036, and then you may as well guess, a big portion of the planet is going to be directly affected, and then the rest of the planet from all the residual effects. But you had NASA denying it. We have article after article. We've sent stuff to scientists all the time. UFO people, none of the people in the UFO world want to talk about this, because if they mention Billy Meier, they can't make a buck off of people running to get all this free information. Yeah, if you want the core, you want to buy a book or a $15 download and you get $100 worth of the films for free. What else can we do, folks? I mean, nobody's coming to save us. Nobody from nowhere. This is the saving. Here we give you the key to your future survival. Have a nice day. Either put it in the lock and turn it, or don't, and go through the catastrophes and see how many survivors and the rebuilding of your world and all the crazy stuff. That's why these people have come here. They can see where we're going.
Right.
What else can we do? So it's not about the doom and gloom. It's about, hey, you want disclosure? Here's the disclosure that they will never give you.
Yeah. But it is to know his prediction, so that hopefully we can be smart enough and wise enough to prevent a lot of this from happening. Wake some folks up. And again, I will have all the links in. Thank you so much. He's such a good boy. We have a guest in the house, and he's acting a little more cuckoo than normal, but he's a good boy. I will put all the links to where you can find a lot of what we spoke about today. Go read, research for yourself. You've got tons of videos for folks to watch on there. Trust me, you'll be entertained for hours. Check out, I'm going to definitely check out that book. I wrote it down because that sounds like something right up my alley that I'd love to read.
I'll just throw in one other thing on wherever you're putting that information. We have some information there on a health-related thing that actually helps people detox all these terrible chemicals and things. It's there. If you can't find what you're looking for, you send me an email. Give me a little time. I will answer you. I will
there'll be links, Michael, where folks can reach out to you. I'll make sure I put everything. Just go to Ethereal Encounters Unveiled on YouTube. This video stays up because someone had asked before they wanted to rewatch it. So it's definitely never going to get taken down, and you'll be able to replay it. And several of our other conversations are there as well. So you'll be able to find those. Michael, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Time always flies when I talk to you. Thank you so much. And we will reach out to you again, because there's so much more to talk about when it comes to Billy and his wise advice and predictions. And we will be in touch soon.
Look forward to it.
Thank you, Michael. Have a blessed rest of the week.
Thank you for the opportunity again, Carol Ann. Much appreciated.
Of course, Michael. Talk to you soon, dear. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, thank you all so much. I'm always so intrigued when I speak with Michael. He's got so much information. I mean, there are other people that you can find on YouTube that talk about Billy, of course, but I think he's the most knowledgeable, and has met with Billy a few times and has actually had an encounter himself. So I really enjoy speaking with Michael, and I know that you will love listening to a lot of what he has to say. So check out some of our other videos. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. You've been listening to Ethereal Encounters Unveiled live on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, which is 105.3 and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. Each week, listeners will be introduced to featured guests from various television shows, film, radio, many authors, best-selling books, and beyond. Don't forget, we air live every Thursday during this time, 5 to 7 p.m. EST. And then on Friday, I have a pre-recorded show that airs between the hours of 3 and 5 p.m. EST for folks that are from overseas and cannot make our live event. And yet I still want to be able to bring them to you, because like tomorrow, I'm going to be interviewing someone. You'll see it the following Friday because he couldn't make the live. But definitely check us out on YouTube. Please make sure you give us a thumbs up and subscribe. It means the world to me when you do that. Supporting this channel means so much. It allows us to keep going. So thank you so much for all of your support. Thank you so much and have a blessed rest of your week. Leave comments and questions. I'm sure Michael will answer them at some point during his free time. Thanks again for watching, everyone. All my love. Take care. Have a blessed one.